All right, so here we go with part three of chapter 22. We left off talking about the attack at Pearl Harbor, um, leading to the United States entering World War II. This attack was led by Japan. Now, why Japan all of a sudden? Why does it seem that they are targeting us at this moment? Well, let me remind you, we froze their assets. We were placing economic sanctions against them because of their decision to invade China, which we felt was um, not fair, if you will. Uh, Meanwhile, we had done that, about 40 years earlier. Um, but when Japan invaded Indochina, the United States cut off trade with Japan. The prime minister of Japan at the time is a military general by the name of Hideki or Hideki Tojo. Hideki Tojo, however you want to pronounce that. But that's right here. You can underline it. You just need to know that this is the guy who's in charge of Japan, by and large, and will be the target for the U.S. military in our efforts in this conflict. Now, when the United States enters this conflict, we are going to launch our military effort and aim it into a theater of war known as the Pacific. There are three theaters of war. The most obvious one would be the European theater. Okay, and in Europe, we are targeting Hitler. There is a Pacific theater, and in that theater, the United States will lead the charge, and our targets there will be Japan, Hideki Tojo. For the sake of staying with an individual, we'll just put Tojo up here. And then, or we could say it's Japan. Let's just do that. Japan here. In Europe, the major issue is going to be Germany. And then last but not least, we have a African theater. And the nation of concern there will be Italy because of proximity. But let's start with the United States. Let's start with our desire to be involved in the Pacific. We set up shop in the Philippines. Now, we had been there before because of the Spanish-American War, 1898. So we were aware of the people. We were aware of the position. We set up shop there, but we really weren't ready. The Japanese overwhelmed us. We were losing battles here and there, and when it was all said and done, we had to retreat to a degree. We ultimately settled with surrendering 78,000 American troops under the leadership of General Douglas MacArthur, who infamously let those individuals know that he will come back for them, and that we will rescue a great deal of those troops. 78,000 American troops are forced to march through the jungles of the Philippines. And this will be referred to in the American press as the Bataan Death March. We call it the Death March because deaths took place, and we were also trying to generate, an attitude, a feeling towards the enemy at hand, which were the Japanese. We wanted to make them appear as fiendish and as vile as we could, when in reality, out of 78,000 troops that were surrendered, not many of them died. Most of the people who died upon the Bataan Death March are actually going to be Filipino people. I could be wrong, but I thought the numbers were in the hundreds, if that, of American lives lost out of 78,000. Don't get me wrong, every life is of value, but in the grand scheme of things, to refer to it as a death march, I think the rhetoric is interesting, but for the American perspective, it is necessary so that we understand the threat of the enemy at hand and we act accordingly. In the Pacific, we did not start strong. We will, however, bounce back with the Battle of Midway, and you can underline it, but I mean, I don't think it. I don't know if it's going to be on a test or anything like that. But the idea is this: look, the Battle of Midway will turn the tide of the Pacific. It's an aeronautical dogfight between the American Air Force and the Japanese Air Force, and will be victorious. And with that battle, the Japanese will no longer pose a military threat to the United States. So we're able to in essence, put Japan on the back burner. They're not defeated. They're not defeated at all, to say the least. They're still there, but they're no longer an offensive threat. They're no longer going to be a problem militarily. So we can move on to the next issue at hand, and that will be America's involvement in Europe. Now, before we get to Europe, we have to ask ourselves, what would be the best way to get there? When you look at a map, and we can go back real quick. Let me see if I can find one. Pull one up real quick. Let's look back at this map. And we need to remember that the Soviet Union is pushing back against Germany in that direction. The British are holding their own, and they're pushing in this direction. Now, if Germany is right here, which we all can see, we can ask ourselves, there are 2 points of entry which would make sense. We can make a point of entry over the top here, and that makes a little bit of sense. But there is a presence of Italy in Africa, and we feel that we might be able to hit 2 birds with 1 stone, if you will, if we enter the African theater, which is down here, and come up into Italy, subdue issues there, and then when it's all said and done, we have this triple attack, if you will, on into Germany. So that's the attitude at hand. After we set up shop or settle the situation in the Pacific, we then venture off into Africa. In 1942, British and American troops are going to invade northern parts of Africa and force a very preeminent general by the name of Rommel to surrender in 1943. This is General Rommel here. And he is probably of the caliber of another famous American general at the time, General George S. Patton. Patton was a tank general. Rommel's a tank general. Rommel's often referred to as the Desert Fox. And with his surrender, that's a big plus for the Allied forces, a big plus for the American forces. He's sent back to Germany and would ultimately commit suicide because he was at odds with high-ranking Nazi officials, and they felt that that was the best way for him to end his life. So with that being said, the African theater is wrapped up. American and British troops are now venturing into Sicily, and when we get to Sicily, we get word that there is this uprising, a rebellion taking place, and the people of Italy are upset. The people of Italy have had enough, and they're no longer going to be playing any games, and they attack Mussolini. They find Mussolini, they find his mistress, they beat him. They understand that he was a liar, he was a dictator. He was never about the greatness of Italy, more so about the greatness of himself. And a fascist dictator will succumb to the people, and he will be assassinated. You can see in this picture here, Mussolini and his mistress are killed. They are hung upside down from rafters, and they are paraded throughout the streets so that people can throw rocks at them. And this is evidence of Italy falling out of World War II. Now that Italy is under wraps, the United States can make concentrated efforts on a European target, and that leads us to an operation known as D-Day. D-Day is the official start, or you could argue the beginning of major U.S. involvement in Europe. This begins June 6, 1944. D-Day will be under the leadership of Dwight D. Eisenhower, who will eventually become president of the United States. D-Day is the most massive sea and land operation in history, and this can be profiled by the film Saving Private Ryan. You guys can check that film out. It's a great indicator of what individuals had to go through in order to reach the beaches. I mean, we got to understand that the Germans held much of France at a very advantageous position as troops were in ships approaching the beaches, the shores. They were already being shot at. People were falling over the boats with their gear, weighing them down. Many of them are drowning. Many of them are being shot. They finally reach the beach, and they're soaking wet. Their guns are wet, and now they have to run up the beach, run up the hill. So I mean, we're on top of the fact we're talking about they have firepower coming down, raining on them. They are running on a beach, and I don't know if you've ever ran on a beach. That ain't sexy. It's hard as hell. These guys are soaking wet. Bullets are flying. Blood is spilling. People are dying. But somehow, some way, American forces are able to liberate Paris as early as August. The Germans uh, they practically leave that position. We are successful in our efforts, and things are starting to look pretty bad for Germany at this moment. At the Battle of Stalingrad, this will be the turning tide of the German invasion of Russia. The Soviets will be successful at the Battle of Stalingrad, stopping the German invasion, and now Germany has nowhere to go. The Soviets are pressing on the east. The Americans and the British are pressing on the west. Their German ally of Italy is now out of commission. Japan is struggling for stabilization and existence, and things are about to get really scary in Nazi Germany. Before we get into the Holocaust, I want to talk about the casualties that the Germans suffered with their invasion of the Soviet Union. When it was all said and done, there are going to be 13.6 million German casualties in World War II. 10 million of that came because of Hitler's decision to invade the Soviet Union. So this was a devastating decision that will ultimately result in the unraveling of Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler's leadership. The cost for the Soviets in defending themselves and the devastation that took place with the slicing up of Poland, we'll see that millions of Poles and at least 20 million Russians are going to die defending their country against this Nazi onslaught. Now, we all have grown up and learned about the Holocaust and what that meant and what that means today. But we cannot have an elementary understanding of this situation. So bear with me because I'm going to break down the Holocaust for you right now. As a matter of fact, make sure you go ahead and write it out. You can underline it. It's down there at the bottom here. I'll go ahead and underline it. And the Holocaust is not the extermination of 6 million Jews during World War II. That's too simple of an explanation. In reality, what many people believe the Holocaust to be is actually the final solution. So the way I like to break down the Holocaust, and the way that we probably should be observing the Holocaust is with the following stages. The first stage being identification. Well, it'd be good if I spelled that right. When Nazi Germany invaded an area, they had a desire to make sure that people of Aryan descent were treated like first-class citizens, and then everybody else would be treated less, specifically Jews. Now, the thing about being a Nazi or believing in racial superiority, at least in America, it's easy because our racial superiority is predicated upon color. For Nazi Germany, this is difficult because you could look at somebody and it might not be that easy to determine whether or not if they were Jewish. Now, you could readily look at somebody and say, hey, that guy's Asian, that guy's black. But to be Jewish, I mean, that's very difficult to discern because you're talking about someone's religious beliefs. So identification is essential in order to determine who is going to live, who is going to die, who is going to be treated like second-class citizens, who will be treated like dogs. So identification is necessary. And so when Nazi Germany came into a region, they forced people of Jewish descent to wear some type of insignia that would identify them as such. This would be the Star of David, and they could have like a patch. So I'll put that up there, Star of David. And could have a patch, they could have papers, they could have a necklace, but the bottom, or a pin. But the bottom line is, I need to know that you're Jewish. And if I know you're Jewish, then I can discriminate you. I can deny you that loan. I can arrest you. I can harass you. I can assault you. And in essence, treat them like lesser than human beings. But that's the first part of the Holocaust. And lives will be lost during this period of identification. Once we know who Jewish people are, some people begin to say, man, I feel like there are too many Jewish people around us. I don't want them living in this neighborhood. I don't want them living down this street. I want them living in their own communities. So this will then result in something known as relocation. So at first we have identification. Now we have relocation. And this will be the forced movement of people of Jewish descent into neighborhoods. And these were shoddy neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods. And we want to just all the Jews in one place. And we're going to call these neighborhoods ghettos. Why? Well, if you're not aware of history, ghettos have been around for quite some time. And ghettos are nothing more than neighborhoods where the same ethnic group dominates that neighborhood. These Jewish ghettos will be established, and it's now an easy target for Nazi Germany to assault and discriminate against these individuals, because we know exactly where they are living. They are relegated to the worst parts of towns, the worst parts of cities, the worst parts of nations. And this was a way to dehumanize these individuals. Not only were we going to make it very clear that they were Jewish, we were going to make it very clear where they could live. We were going to make it very clear what they could do. And this is the second stage of the Holocaust. Now, the third stage of the Holocaust will be known as liquidation. And to liquidate means to simply remove. When the war started, Germany felt, well, we need a war economy. We need people working to produce weapons, to produce ammunition, to produce the resources necessary to conduct this war. But if we have our German soldiers, who are obviously the most physically fit and superior soldiers fighting in the conflict, they definitely cannot be working in the factories. So we need a massive labor force. Why not use Jews? Why not exploit anybody who is of non-Aryan descent to work in these factories, in these work camps, so that they could benefit Nazi Germany? So Nazi soldiers are going to go to the ghettos, and they're going to liquidate the ghettos. They are going to remove every person of Jewish descent out of the ghetto, and they are going to put them on trucks and force them to enter work camps. Families are being separated, and this is in the middle of the night. It's scary. They have guns. They're yelling. They're hitting people. They're killing people on sight. They're separating husbands from wives, brothers from sisters, parents from children. And that's crazy, because you don't know where they're going. You don't know what camp they're going to. You don't know what city they're going to. You don't know if they're going to be alive. And this is all taking place. It's catastrophic. It's devastating. And many people are going to die in the liquidation of the ghettos as they are being transported. Most of them will be transported to work camps. They did not want to kill Jews. If they killed them, they can't use them. Now, they don't mind killing them later, but we got to understand that in the outset, because of the war effort, the idea was to use them to their very last drip of blood in their body, the very last energy or calorie in their body, the very last bone in their body. They wanted to break their mind. They were going to break their spirit. They were going to break them physically. But this was all in an effort to utilize them to their last drop. So the liquidation of the ghettos will force them into work camps. And when they finally are in work camps, then we begin to become aware of concentration camps. Concentration camps are places of holding. Many of them were work camps. And then, of course, there will be some camps that were death camps. Not every concentration camp was a death camp. Most of them were work camps, again, because they were trying to extract labor out of them. But then, as the walls were caving in, as the Soviet Union were making progress in defending themselves, especially at the Battle of Stalingrad, as U.S. forces were inching closer and closer to Germany, with the assistance of the British, and with Mussolini now dead in the street. High-ranking Nazi officials are going to Hitler and they're saying, "Yo, we need an answer. What do we do?" Hitler tells all of his generals, "We need a concentration of forces back in Germany. Bring everybody back to Germany. We have to protect the motherland." Well, what about all the generals at the camps? Bring them back to Germany. Well, what about all the people in the camps? Kill them all. I don't care. Kill them all. And that's when we begin to see what is known as the final solution, or we need to be aware, and this will be the final stage of the Holocaust. Right here, you can underline it. It's the final solution, and this will be the decision to mass exterminate undesirable people, which will include Jews, but also Slavs, Gypsies, homosexuals, the disabled, the elderly. And when it's all said and done, the numbers have historically been around 6 million casualties, 6 million deaths because of the Holocaust. But estimates have been, I've seen things 10 million, 12 million, uh, and not to exaggerate anything, the Holocaust is a reality. You're going to have individuals that will deny the Holocaust. You'll have individuals that will diminish the numbers as if that matters. The reality is the following: these individuals had nothing to do with the war. They were not soldiers. They didn't sign up for this. They were casualties of war. They were what Hitler referred, I mean, not Hitler referred to, but they are in essence collateral damage uh, uh, because of Nazi Germany and Hitler's failed leadership.